What's up, everybody? I am driving from Redding back to Grass Valley in California and figured I would do a little broadcast here and do some things I've been trying to get to for weeks, if not months here. It's been a crazy bunch of months, as I know it has been for everybody. But I've been meaning to make more videos and give you guys some things to think about and give us some things to talk about. And so here we go. Just some updates. I have a place in Grass Valley now. I have a roommate. I have an awesome roommate. And since the summertime, I was working a job landscaping. And it seems I'm either lost that job or am in the process of losing that job right now. It's been a wild couple months. I had a ear infection that had me fully down for 2 weeks, and really it was 3 weeks of recovery, where I wasn't able to work, I wasn't able to run classes. It was pretty wild. And before that I had a job that oddly enough, some clients of the landscaping company that I was working for, they didn't appreciate my work so much somehow, even though step to step my coworkers and I keep pace, but they said they were watching me out the window and I was the slow one. And that took away a month of work for me right before Christmas. And holiday season was tight. I was barely paying rent, and I had some really awesome people step up and give me some love and some financial assistance during that, so that I could show my daughter a good holiday and make nice memories. And we did some awesome things this past month. We made it to the roller rink on New Year's Eve. They did like a balloon drop in the afternoon and sort of had like a simulated New Year's for these little kids. That was super fun. I love roller skating. I want to get back there. And 2 days after Christmas, on the 27th, we had a huge snowstorm roll into Nevada County and Placer County and the Sierras here, Sierra foothills and the Sierras, and that was pretty wild. A huge pine tree fell on my Ford Transit van and totaled it. So I'm vehicle-less right now. I'm driving a rental car, which is pretty sweet that I was at least able to make this happen, to bring my daughter back to her mom's. And I'm driving a Dodge Charger right now. They asked if I wanted a Corolla or a Charger, and I said hook me up with the Charger. And a little bit of a race car here, pretty fun. But trying to get my feet back on the ground. I have a GoFundMe that I'll link. And those are kind of my updates right now. I'd really appreciate everybody's support who can. Lean times. I know it's lean times for a lot of people, and hard to find work, and daunting to lose work in the era when it's hard to find work. That's life, And I'm ready to double down on some art and some music and start producing more of this content for you guys and start building the community up and building the crew up and helping the kiddos and all the stuff. So I've been realizing that I've been sort of honing in, I've been refining a series of kind of lectures, a series of topics that I'm kind of being able to sparse down, and it's something I kind of talk to friends about and I'm able to go off on. I have sort of a lot of these topics, and I'm sort of starting to organize them into little groups as content that I could repeat. Let me just block this really quick. Sorry, I wanted to make sure that I didn't get any calls while I'm doing this. So yeah, content that I'm sort of realizing are my talking points and have helped me out and has helped me out being able to talk about them for extended periods. And I'm sort of realizing that maybe it's a book that I'm slowly brainstorming and organizing and composing these little talking points that I have. So one of the questions that I ask parents and would ask anybody to answer this question is, why in the history of humanity did people have kids? What was the purpose of having kids? Right? And people, one of the answers I get a lot from people is to pass down knowledge, which is a huge part of it. And kind of the answer that I try to pull out of them is that it was economical to have more kids. It was a decision that was made because you needed it. You needed kids. The world needed kids. The world needed them. If you were a farmer, you needed more hands in the fields and more hands working the vegetables. If you were, a hunter-gatherer tribe, even just having a toddler who can smash acorns all day. Kids love to smash things, and we tell them to stop, but maybe there was a reason why a kid is so good at just hitting a rock on another rock and, putting a little acorn in that rock and smashing that acorn was a super useful thing. And then every child is more eyes, more ears, more hands, more feet. It's more of everything that makes the village safe and makes the village go. And the kids were our encyclopedias eventually, and we had to turn them into our encyclopedias. And one of the things that I've realized, or at least that I think about, is discovering things like fire, or refining a type of shelter, refining the way a village builds a shelter a specific way, refining a basket and how the village, what materials they use and what weaves they use. Those didn't just come to one person suddenly. It wasn't just like an epiphany, in my opinion. People think maybe some guy just decided to rub some sticks together and you know, he made fire that day or that week or that month. To me, I think it was more of a passed on idea that humans have been collecting fire from lightning strikes and from volcanoes, and that was pretty much like where fire would come from. Is like lightning would strike and you'd see the fire off in the distance and you'd have to go get it while it was there, and you'd have to approach that wildfire and grab a chunk of fire. And when you had that chunk of fire, it was a village imperative. It was life or death to keep that fire around and to not let it go out, even in torrential downpours and blizzards and all these things. And there was a long time in human history where we just held that fire. We collected that fire and we just made sure it didn't go out. And I think when we had that fire, people started to theorize about how they could make that lightning strike, or how they could make something hot enough, as hot as a volcano, and lava as hot as lava. How could we make that on our own? And I think the idea to make fire preceded the creation of fire by friction by many years. I think I would picture that idea got passed on, where a village would be like, man, I heard Grandpa got smoke. Grandpa was getting smoke. And Dad, I heard Dad, he said he got this chunk of orange, and that it only lasted for a brief second. They tried to put it in some wood and it didn't quite go. But I heard he was really close, and I feel like that idea got passed on before anyone ever made fire. And then these methods of the fire plow and the hand drill, which I'm pretty sure those are the first methods, and then came bow drill, and a lot of people think people were banging rocks together, and that was the first way. You need steel to make the flint and steel fire. To make a spark that's going to catch in a tinder bundle is way harder, and actually I think way less intuitive than creating friction fire. I'm pretty sure friction fire was the original fire creation method that humans figured out. And once we created these methods and we figured out which woods are best, and we figured out how to carve the notch, which is, if you know fire by friction, making this notch, this little pie shape in your fireboard, is really essential to getting oxygen in the right amount to light. You make this dust and you're grinding wood into dust. And when you grind that wood into dust, the very center of your stick that's spinning gets the hottest, right? And so you need this notch to collect the dust that's forming from grinding it away and making it hotter and hotter. And then that dust gets so hot at the very tip of the notch on your fireboard, on the bottom piece that you're grinding into. The very tip of that notch gets so hot that it ignites just a little tiny speck of that dust. And that tiny speck of ember catches the rest of the dust around it, and that's why it needs oxygen. And the dust needs to be the right consistency that ember can spread, and that heat can spread through convection and radiation, radiant heat and convection. And then that little tiny spark, that little tiny orange piece creates an ember, which a lot of people call a coal, but it's not a coal yet because it's still burning. It's an ember. It's bright orange, and that bright orange ember is your little baby fire, and that little baby fire gets put into a tinder bundle, and that tinder bundle gets put into your fire structure. And so there's so many pieces, and if you put a scientist with just everything I just told you, and you told him that, and you put him out into the wilderness, and you said, here's the idea, go make a fire, and you're not getting food until you do that, or you're not getting warm until you do, you don't, put him in the snow, and that person's probably not gonna make a fire. They're probably gonna perish or get really cold and have to get rescued and be like, you failed. And so my point is passing on the details of knowledge like that, the details of how and what wood to use and why we use which wood, what are the properties of it that make it the best, and how we make our tinder bundle and how we build our fire structure. If that didn't get passed on to your kids and to all the kids of the village, literally you're back to square zero. You're back to ground zero of fire making, where you have to invent every piece of, imagine having to invent every idea of what's going to make a fire from scratch, which in my opinion took some generations, a couple generations of having that idea in the first place. You had to have that idea in the first place and then practice that idea. And there's something to that. That's why we had kids. We had to pass these things on, or they would get fully lost. And actually, even though we have 7 billion people on the planet, we actually lost that stuff again. Here, I'm going to show you this really quick. Opa. Look at this sunset, the mountains, driving across here. So yeah, if you're watching, pretty beautiful. Pretty beautiful. Anyway, so my point is that we had kids for not just a reason, but a reason that was critical to our literal survival and the survival of the knowledge we passed on. You can't write these things down. You can't write down can't write down how to make a fire very well, and we didn't have the language and the writing yet. That has to get invented and passed on out of necessity as well, right? And so for thousands of years we had kids to be our encyclopedias, to be our internet, to hold every piece of the village's knowledge. Every piece of the adult's knowledge had to get passed down thorough proficiency, and with the innovation for new little pieces of that. And again, if any little chunk of it, any little bits were lost, they were potentially lost until someone else figured it out again, or maybe forever. And dances are the same. You can't write down a dance. And music is the same. We couldn't write down music until we made a whole system for writing it down. And then even then, you can't write down the experience of listening to it. You can write down how to play it. And you have to learn that language to begin with. And if that language were to get lost, then you just have dots on a page again. It's not actually music. And so there was an imperative. My point is this. There was an imperative, a urgency, a deep, deep need to hope that your kids grew up fast. A longing and a hope that they are able to hold this knowledge as fast as possible, at as young of an age as possible, so that it could get saved, so that it would not be lost. Because if it was lost, again, back to square one, back to ground zero. And so, as parents now, do we have that urgency and sense of need for why we had kids in the first place? And I know I didn't actually used to believe in having kids because of all these global population, all the calamities we're seeing, the calamities we're part of right now. This is what I was worried about. I was worried about this for a long, long time. This C-19 and all these things that are piling up, this tyrannical rule, this failure of education, I was worried about having kids because these methods are disappearing and the calamities are stacking up, but I realized I had something that I wanted to make sure got passed on. And it's kind of the same, it's fire. I wanted to make sure my fire techniques got passed on. And let me fix this. Because if they don't get passed on, they get lost. And when I say my fire techniques, I'm referring to a lot of different things. I'm referring to lineage, and I'm referring to the things I've taken so long to learn, and I've put a lot of effort into learning, that can't be written down, and that can mainly only be passed on through experience and through sharing eye contact and through sharing space with each other. And what I wonder about these days is, why did you have kids? What urgency and what need were you feeling? And my fear is that a lot of parents had kids because they wanted to. And what that makes your kid is a pet in some regard. It was to comfort you and to comfort your needs as a parent, to comfort your needs as an adult, not the needs of the world and not the needs of your tribe as a whole, and not to improve the economics of your family, and not to add more hands and more feet and more ears and more eyes. But you had a kid because you wanted the experience of having a kid. And maybe you thought that you had a cool life to share with a kid. And maybe you thought that you'd be a good parent. But that sounds an awful lot like how people decide to get a dog. I think I'd be a good dog owner. think I could have fun with the dog. And might seem a little bit, maybe it's a little harsh. I can do that sometimes. I can introduce things that are a little bit harsh. But I want you to think about that. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't have had kids, because I know a lot of you have really wonderful kids. But are you giving your kids purpose in the world? Are you giving them a reason to live and a reason to be and a reason, with a dog, what makes a balanced dog is making him feel like part of the pack and knowing he has a strong leader and knowing that he has a job, a purpose, and that job is really important for the pack, and that job makes everybody's life safer and everybody's life better. And if the only job is to be around and look cute, sometimes some dogs are bred for that, but the closer you get back to the wild dog, the canine and the lupus, the wolf and the coyote, and you see a husky is a sled dog, and you have these dogs that are bred for purpose other than being cute. And the cute dog, we're not hoping he becomes powerful and guards the house. He's not going to guard the house. But our child, we hope that they can become good guards, good sentries of what our house represents and what our lineage and what our knowledge represents. And it's getting dark here. Talked through sunset. That was pretty nice. But yeah, I hope that lands home, and I hope that lands on soft ears. And I'm not, I'm not out to get you guys, but I'm hoping that if you did, if I am sort of, if it is kind of rubbing a sensitive spot for you, maybe ask, why that is, and maybe it does ring true a little bit, and maybe, we make mistakes, and there's times where we have to adjust our vision in life, vary your vision. You'll hear this a lot from me, because I heard it a lot from my teacher, and he told us, Tom Brown told us, that he never stopped learning from Go Ask the Mice, and he never stopped learning from Vary Your Vision. And what vary your vision means is like switch the way you're looking at things, and be okay switching your whole reason for being on this planet and adjusting to your new way of seeing things. And I'm trying to help you guys have new lenses to see things, new lenses to be parents, new lenses to be teachers. And what do you want? Why do you want, like, if you're holding your kids in the nest, I can understand that. I feel the same way. Like, you don't want your kid to grow up. You want to hold them and you want to protect them. And then, but why do you want that? Ask yourself why you want that. And then if you were to want the opposite, I want my kid to grow up and be strong as quick as possible and to be powerful. And what do I want them, what skills do I want them holding, and what skills do I want them to be embodying as humans on this planet? What's important to me, and what's important not just to me, what's important for, I don't think saving the world that's a big stretch, and I don't think that's what we should be putting on our kids. But in what ways can you just make the little world around you better? And that makes, Can they help you make the house feel nice? And can they say hello to strangers and help make a stranger's day feel better? You know, one thing that I've taught my girl is, what is it called when you're scared and you do something anyway? And that's courageous. It's courage. And where are we practicing our courage, and where are we practicing our kids to have courage? And what victories, I'm all about celebrating the small victories and not looking at mistakes as mistakes, but figuring out how to learn from them, and then celebrating that we learned from them. And what small victories are we celebrating, and what big visions do we have for our little ones? Yeah, I'll leave you with that, since it's getting dark, and I'm fading into black here. But it's good to talk to you guys again. My name, Luke Heffley, LUKEHEFELE, and that's my website, lukeheffley.com. And I have a GoFundMe right now for addressing my little financial hiccups and life setbacks, and I really want to dive into more of this content with you, and I want this to be what I do. And if any of you guys want to reach out, I have private sessions you guys can book on my website. Is my name.com, lukeheffley.com. My class schedule, my current class schedule's on there. I just put up a bunch of survival gear that I think everybody should be investing in right now while you still can. And we'll do another podcast about that maybe next time. I'm gonna try to. I tried to be on this every week, but man, life gets crazy trying to make money and trying to pay rent. And I've been moving and treading water. And but I hope you guys aren't treading water too, and I hope you guys have a boat. And hopefully I can grab onto your boat a little bit, and it can be our boat, and we can build a bigger boat, build some lifeboats together. But yeah, much love to you all, and I'll check in soon. Peace.